Hello, my little Luxxes. I am your host, Charsie Luxxx, and this is another episode of Luxxxy Charms. And this one, I am going to do something a little different, do a story time, and I am dressed up as my winter witch, which I'm not sure which video is going to be posted first, if it's going to end up being this one of me doing my story time, or if it's going to be the get ready with me while I'm putting on the look. It does not matter which order this one is in. I guess it'll be a surprise. I have several YouTube channels that I love and enjoy that will do like ghost stories or get ready with me and tell stories, and Sarian is one of them, where on Mondays she does murder makeup Mondays, I should say, and she'll tell like a true crime story about a serial killer, and she does her makeup at the same time. One of the other ones that I enjoy watching is Robert Welsh, and he does on Mondays ghost stories and get ready with me. So I figured on mine I would be, well, I'm already gotten ready in that, but this time I am just in full-fledged cosplay as my winter witch, and I am here to tell you ghost stories that my father used to tell me. This one, obviously, these are all stories that come from my dad, because back in the day, in the summertime, we used to hang out outside late at night with bonfires, and we would all hang out around the campfire with s'mores, and we would tell ghost stories. And those are some of my ultimate favorite memories that I have. I have a ton of favorite memories, but that's a good thing to have good memories and positive moments, because my dad used to make up a lot of stories, and he would just make them up on a whim, and to this day I can still remember most of them. So I'm going to share one of those stories with you today. A lot of these old stories that my father had, I'm pretty sure he had an underlining to the story to kind of have a moral to it for us. So this one I will dub as Drunk Willie. Our story begins with a bunch of frat boys who are at a party. Hey. And there's a group of 5 of them together, and they're all hanging out having a good time. And of course, they're all in a small town area, and they decide that they're gonna start going bar hopping. Well, it's getting later and later into the evening, and they realize that, there's one bar that stays open later than the rest of them. So what do they decide to do? Instead of closing up shop at midnight or 1 in the morning, they decided, let's go out to this bar that is in the middle of nowhere. But the fact is, this bar stays open until 4 a.m. And the boys, of course, they didn't want to close up shop early for the evening. They wanted to continue having a good time. It was the weekend. They had just gotten done winning a big game and wanted to celebrate. So they end up going out in the middle of nowhere to this little bar that is basically a revamped barn that this gentleman had turned into his out of town bar. Now, mind you, their friend Willie was supposed to be their DD, but Willie decided to do the dumb thing and started drinking. And of course, he kept telling everyone he'd be fine to drive and there wouldn't be any issues or problems. Well, and then all of them are like, oh yeah, just drink with us, Willie. That's a great idea. Because, they're not thinking ahead. They're all drinking and having a good time. So they're all slamming down shots. This is a little dive bar where the bartender doesn't care. He's getting all these rich boys' money, and he's just having a good time with these guys, and they're sharing their stories about their big win. As they're drinking and the night's going along, they all decide, well, we're gonna stumble out and we're gonna see if we can start heading home. The boys decide that because Willie wasn't fit to drive them home, that they would get a ride from someone else. Well, nobody told Willie that that's what they were doing, and Willie went into the bathroom and was very, very sick. So here are all his buddies who don't tell him that they're leaving, just abandon poor Willie. And he's left at this dive bar by himself. Finally gets out of the bar and is realizing that nobody is there. And he's like, where did my friends go? Well, the bartender informs him that, well, your friends left you and took off. Here's poor Willie, out on his own, drunk as a skunk, stumbling out to his car. He's not fit to drive. You can tell he's not fit to drive. He's stumbling, he's dropping his keys, he's just fumbling. He can't even get his key in the door to unlock it. Then he remembers he never even locked it in the first place because he's not using his head. Well, he finally gets behind the steering wheel and starts his car and realizes, okay, I'm gonna take the back roads home. He's like, I don't know him so well, but he's like, I know enough of what direction I need to go, and he goes, I'm gonna take these back roads. The bartender comes out and decides he wants to check on this kid. And he starts asking him some questions, and he's like, are you sure you're fit to drive? He's like, I can probably find you somebody to help you out here. He goes, yeah, he's like, I'm okay to drive. And so bartender starts asking him some questions like, how are you gonna drive home then, that if you think you're fit to drive? And he's like, oh, I'm just gonna take those back roads. If I take those back roads, I'll be fine. I'll just take it slow and it'll be fine. The bartender starts being like, well, if you want to take those back roads, that's fine. But he goes, I'm gonna at least forewarn you, there's one road that you should probably avoid. He goes, that would seem like the one that you would want to take, but he's like, there's an old road out there. And he's like, it is called Miller's Road. And he's like, you don't want to take Miller's Road. And of course, Willie's inquiring. He's like, well, why don't I want to take this road if it's the one that's would be the most appropriate one for me to take to get home quicker? And the bartender just kept telling him, he goes, I'm just going to keep reiterating to you, don't take Miller's Road. He's like, it's not a safe road. It's got a lot of problems. Just avoid Miller's Road. The college kid, being the fact of he's full of himself and this and that, starts driving even though he shouldn't be driving because he is clearly not fit to be driving. He's taking his time, and boy, he is feeling sick. Like, the more he's driving and trees and things are moving by him, it's making him more and more sick. He'd already been sick at the bar before he had left, and that's why his friends had abandoned him. He's like, oh, now I just feel atrocious. And he's like, oh, I just want to get home. I just want to get home. Of course, he comes up to this road. And of course it is. It's the one that seems the most convenient. And he comes to find that it is Miller's Road. And he's just so sick as a dog at this point. He's like, you know what? I don't care what that bartender told me. He's like, I'm just gonna take this road. I'll just take my time. How dangerous can a road really be? So turns on Miller's Road, starts taking his time. Of course, it's just a straight path of a road. Been going about a mile or two, and he's like, what's wrong with this road? He goes, it's just an old gravel road. Yeah, it's got a whole bunch of trees on the side of the road. And of course, he's feeling ill. He just wants to get out of his car, and he just wants to throw up. But he's like, oh, I'm getting closer and closer to home. He can see the lights of the town, and he's like, I just have a little ways to go. And he's like, oh, I really, really have to go to the bathroom. And he's like, I need to get going. Well, so he starts driving faster. Of course, as he's driving faster, he's just making himself more and more queasy because things are flying by him like trees and things. It's just the fast movement's making him sicker, but he really wants to get home. He doesn't want to get out of the car. It's a cold night. He's by himself. So he keeps driving faster and faster and faster. With him driving faster and faster and faster, and he's got like no reaction time. He's also swerving all over the road because he's drunk and he's driving too fast, and he's on a road he doesn't know and recognize. All of a sudden, Willie realizes that somebody just walks up on the road, but he is driving way too fast, and he's on a gravel road. He tries to slam on his brakes, but it's too late. He just runs right over this guy. Willie's in a stop, and he's in a panic. And he knows he hit something. And he starts thinking in his head. He goes, that that wasn't a person, was it? But in his mind, he knows for a fact this was a guy. He saw a guy in a black and white plaid shirt walk onto the road, and he hit him. Willie's just sitting there, and then he realizes he's got to look. He's got to double check and make sure. And so Willie rolls down his window, and he looks, and he can kind of see that there's a body just laying in the road behind his car, probably only about like 6-7 feet away. And he starts calling to the person, "Hey man, you okay? Are you okay, man?" No movement, no sound. Willie desperately needs to get sick now. Opens the car door and just starts vomiting all over the place while he is trying to wipe the spit and vomit and everything off of his face. And he starts looking, and he realizes that body's still not moving. And he's like, I need to go check this guy. I need to make sure he's okay. So Willie stumbles out of his car, stumbles to the body, and when he's only about a few feet away, he starts saying, "Hey man, you okay?" And he can tell this was a guy. He was in jeans, had on big hiker boots, had on that black and white plaid shirt, just big, burly of a guy too. And he keeps getting closer. He's like, "Man, are you okay?" And he just can tell this body is not moving. And Willie's freaking out. And finally he gets up on top of the guy, and he rolls him over, and he can just tell like this guy's face is just completely smashed in, and then there's just nothing left of this guy. And poor Willie, of course, has to run to the side of the road and get sick again. And in his realization, he's like, I just hit somebody. What am I gonna do? He's all in a panic, and he knows, he's like, I gotta get home. I don't know what to do. And gets back in his car, drives back home, and he's like, I gotta call the police. I gotta do something. He goes, I don't know what to do. What do I do? Well, in his full panic mode and just being so full of guilt, and he didn't know what he could do. Poor Willie he couldn't live with the guilt, and he didn't want to deal with it anymore. So he called the police, and he reported that there would be a body on Miller's Road, and hung up the phone. Poor Willie decided to hang himself and left a suicide note. When his frat brothers wake the next day and find him in his room, and they contact the police, and they let him know they found a suicide note. When the police come to investigate the body and the suicide, and on the note, of course, it says where Willie is apologizing. He's like, I'm so sorry. I couldn't live with myself. I had accidentally hit a man on Miller's Road, and I had killed him, and I can't live with that. I can't live with that regret and knowing what I had done, and I am so sorry. The cops just kind of like dumbstruck stare at Willie's friends when they are giving him this suicide note. And they finally ask him, like, what is that face? And he's like, we had gotten a call this morning about finding a body on Miller's Road. And we went all up and down that road, and the only thing that we found that was dead in the middle of the road was a cow. There was no person dead on Miller's Road, just a poor old dead cow. So, I guess in my dad's weird moral of his story of that one was that his little underlined saying of he didn't want us drinking and driving, and to, always have a designated driver, I guess. Because poor young Willie didn't realize what hit him, quite literally. When you are out with friends, please make sure that you do have a designated driver. Please be safe out there, and thank you for for joining on another Luxxxy Charms. I, once again, am a cosplayer, Charsie Luxxx. You can find me on my Twitter for Charsie Luxxx, and that's Luxxx, or my Instagram for Charsie87, or on my other YouTube channel that I record with my friend DC on a little channel of horrors where we talk about different horror movies that we love and enjoy. And once again, thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.